What's up, Union Arena players? This is Kyle D, better known as Universities, and today we're going to give you probably the most confident competitive list going into the format, and then we'll probably do, starting off again, as you guys know, I started up the trend of looking at the meta, how it's shaping up, and because we kind of got the big stale for a full month of nothing new, I didn't really find the drive to kind of just keep following through, but with new decks now introduction back every month, I figured it's a good time to bring that back full swing. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. All in all, guys, if you want, check out RideMyAvatar.com. This is a good space for you guys to get stuff you want to get, but they also have great blog information to tell you how to play the new deck that's coming out. Gives you a good representation of this is how you should be playing this, being ready to combo off. You know, the articles alone are a great way of using it. So check out Red Riot Games for the articles, because no lie, this is going to give you the best lineup and understanding of how the deck's going to be playing in the future. So definitely check them out. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace. So guys, as you know, I do these tier lists for every set. So this is basically going into now where things are going to start landing. So Yuha, definitely good, but needs a bit more. I even think once we get volume 2, Yuha doesn't really do anything, but it introduces the second yellow deck that kind of just does well, and I would call it a tier 2 deck, and that is the Bombietta deck, and I just think that'll be really good to have there. Then we have Purple Bleach, still definitely crazy strong. I don't think this is the weaker of them all, and especially with volume 2 coming out, I think it's, people would say probably it's a tier 2 deck right now, but I still think it's a tier 1 deck. A great optimal choice, player dependent understanding of everything that goes on. I don't think the raidless version is the go-to anymore. I think you want to be playing a little bit of a mixture of everything. You know, you want to be playing it like it's supposed to. I think at the end of the day, up to you how you feel about it, but I think we're getting to the point where raidless Bleach, I think, starts pulling away from itself and then becoming pure Ichigo. Next, we do have the Byakuya list. I definitely think Byakuya Kuchiki, being able to minus the board and stuff, and then that new interesting style of play where they were using, like, it was focusing on Byakuya Kuchiki, and then they had the Rukia that double blocked, and they had a bunch of restand triggers, making her a very impenetrable wall for a lot of players to deal with. So that's just kind of where it goes. I think just having, not the Rukia, Orihime was being able to double block and do stuff. I think it's still good. It keeps up with the meta and does a really good meta call. I think if you're going to be playing Bleach stuff, that's definitely a good contender. I think Toshi is still pretty strong, especially with the newer metas being able to multi-attack and everything like that. I think Toshi kind of just pulls ahead a little bit. Just being able to lock the board down and the energy line, which is a lot of these new decks want to use their energy line to swap in to make more new attacks. Being able to take that multi-attack function out really does punish the decks a little bit. And I think it's a good call to maybe call this tier 1 still, just because it's such a good meta contender. Captain Yamamoto, I think is still good. It's definitely a tier 2 deck. It's just not a tier 3 deck. I think it still plays well into the tier 2 category and tier 3 very comfortably. But when it starts getting against the tier 1s, I think Yamamoto just a little slow at times, and that just hurts it a little bit. Specified slots, I definitely think if you guys see it, the deck is still pretty solid, and I think taking it to any event, to be straight honest with you, might do you well. I mean, slots does have that all-in kind of strategy of play, and once it goes off, guys. Like, it's a very hard deck once it has all the pieces of being able to remove things at a consistent rate, and being able to if it has all the specified slots it needs, it basically murks a lot of things. Bombers, I definitely think is a tier 3 right now. It definitely got bumped down. There's just a lot more stronger, faster decks, and it just kind of pushed it out of the meta, and that makes a lot of sense, right? But definitely once the volume 2, I definitely think it moves up to tier 2 category and actually is probably one of the better choices of if you're going to be playing anything for Hunter x Hunter is the bombers. Crollo definitely has fallen down. It's just not as good into the meta as it used to be. And then the Zoldyck family, definitely that even just the hybrid has fallen down a little bit. Don't get me wrong, if you guys get the right pieces, it can definitely do some crazy amount of damage, and that's fine. But at the same time, you just have to be prepared in certain circumstances that you might not always be ready for when your opponent's making those push plays, and you just kind of get slowed down because you just didn't open correctly. So that's like their big problem with Purple Hunter x Hunter. It's just missing some much needed support. Kurapika, I would love to say Kurapika is still tier 1, but I feel like there's just too many fast decks, and it's still a great deck, don't get me wrong. Locally, it'll do well, but major events-wise, I think Kurapika is just finally starting to show its age, and just being the first set, even though it's got in its promos bonuses and stuff like that. Eventually, I feel like we're going to see like majority of the Hunter x Hunter stuff kind of just move down here. Just good, but need some more. Just because as time goes on, I'll probably even just move slots down, actually. Let's move slots to 3. I think taking a look here, I think that's where we're going to keep it. And then Green Gone, just the problem with Hunter x Hunter, it's just, it's showing that I am the first set kind of syndrome. And even though it has the promos behind it kind of helping it, it does struggle a little bit to get there. You know, Kurapika is probably still the best deck, but these definitely have fallen down because of, you know, more new sets. Just drive it down kind of support. Metalbat's still pretty solid. I think I would call it a tier 2 deck. It does what Toshi does a little bit, but it just doesn't have that suspend option, but it just applies a decent amount of pressure. It kind of feels like you're playing the Hashira deck list. So just in green, just something to think about. Green, we're not, you know, this list is fine. I think it needs some more support, even though, you know what? That's what I'm missing. I knew I was missing something. I'm missing a Suzaku. Wow. Give me a quick sec. Let me fix that. Let's get the Suzaku in, because I almost forgot about Suzaku. Yeah, to be honest with you, this green deck and this one definitely needs more support. Volume 2 definitely helps the decks actually be a little more confident strategy, but for budget rarity shenanigans, this is one of the weaker decks. If we're gonna run through the codes, let's run through it quickly. Pizza and this deck, I definitely feel like, you know, Ashford Rush is still probably one of the better decks in tier 2 category, just because it is a very fast deck, even though it's missing the Nonally. Pizza can go off, and it's very fast, as equally on par with Ashford sometimes. It really comes down to seeing what you see. And if you can get her C2 live as soon as possible, this deck is very hard to compete against. I would have to say Lancelot is still pretty crazy strong. At the end of the day, it is player dependent, but I think players have started adapting more and more to understanding how to play Lancelot in this format until Volume 2 comes out, and then the ball game changes completely. Gawain is still probably classified the best deck in the format, just because the deck is very powerful, very much great strategy comes across from it, and at the end of the day, Gawain's going to do what Gawain wants to do. Being able to board control very consistently. I feel like the deck will start phasing out once we see Black Clover into the mix in Volume 2 of Bleach. I think those decks just outpace what Purple Code is going to do. And to be honest with you, with Purple Code getting knocked down, I'm banking on once we get Volume 2, Lancelot's going to be probably the big one that stays at top, and then Purple Code just moves down to tier 2 just because of the speed of the format just changes. And once decks get faster than Gawain, you know there's an issue with Gawain trying to keep up. Now, let's get Blue JJK. Kento Namami, I feel like the Kento list definitely has moved down to tier 2. And then its counterpart, the Sukuna, I definitely think Sukuna, Blue Sukuna is still very tier 1 category. The one that focuses on the shrine and stuff like that, just because it can deal with a lot more. Kento was great, but now there are a lot of faster decks that kind of just get under it before he comes live. So you need to be ready to be playing a deck that can get live before you kind of just get murked by that. So, you know, getting under Kento is a big problem for the Kento deck. And if your deck can do it comfortably, you're just going to win every single time. Now we do have more Toto swap. Toto, definitely a tier 2 deck, I think. Same thing with the Mahito list. I think both the purple decks of JJK are still really solidly great and are going to do a lot and go the extra mile. So just something to think about there. We have the purple JJK. We have the blue JJK. Wow, I even missed yellow. How did I miss yellow? Dang it. Excuse me. There we go. I missed yellow JJK completely. How did I do that? Megumin and Nubar. There we go. That should fix that. There we go. Megumin, I'm going to be straight honest with you. Definitely a sleeper pick. If you guys think you want a very fast deck and very useful, Megumin definitely has explosive terms and your opponent has to answer as soon as possible. If they don't, this deck can just those dogs can just rip you to shreds. I think the deck is still competitively viable even into the meta. It's a faster aggression deck and it can sneak in under a lot of these lists. So just something to think about. I just can't put it tier 1 category just yet. Nubara definitely tier 2. And then Gojo, it had its time in the sun, but actually, let's just put both of these. I think Megumin is one of the top dogs in tier 2, but as rogue strategy, to be honest with you. I've seen these decks kind of do some well, so that's where we're going to kind of just leave it here. I think that's pretty good so far. Now let's get into Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer, we're going to go with Muzan's good, but there's just so many decks that get underneath it. The Daki deck, same thing. Good into its own meta, but once you start getting outside of that, I feel like the resources, just a lot of these upper tier decks kind of just smack these down a little bit. Once they get their volume 2 support though, it's all fair game and love and war there. These decks are just crazy. The Hashira list, definitely think it's pretty solid. A tier 2 deck. It's still going to do well. Tanjiro Nezuko, I think we're going to start seeing this peter down a little bit, but I'm going to say instead of being tier 1, I definitely think it's a tier 2 deck. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's still competitively viable, but you know, there are decks that are doing its job for less, and that's the problem, right? When you have decks just be able to do what Tanjiro's doing for less resources, that's basically its biggest problem. The boys deck, under the right circumstances in Pilot, most players will say it's a tier 2 deck. It needs a volume 2 support or else I cannot give it tier 2 status. The Wives deck, same thing, follows the same issue. Tier 3, this is just where you guys gotta have it at. Now, wow, I even missed Saitama. Wow, I missed Saitama. Yellow Saitama to be specific. So, yeah, we already kind of did Metalbat, but, you know, the green Saitama deck, I definitely think is a very tier 1 strategy. It plays slightly different than most other decks, and once that deck kind of just goes off, it is very hard to actually sneak the win. Once this deck is completely live for getting Saitama off, if you did not win, most likely you have death coming. And big Saitama just ends games quickly. Esper Sisters, I think it's still pretty solid, crazy strong deck. I think under the right pilot, this deck can be very unfair and very punishing against a lot of decks, even just going into what we're going to be seeing shortly. Yeah, Speedo Sound Sonic, I definitely think I want to put it tier 1 bias, but we're going to have to put it tier 2. It's very fast, very powerful. Under the right circumstances, the deck just goes where it wants to and when it wants to. There's not many things that'll stop when Speedo Sonic goes live, because again, the whole meta is in the 4K range besides Saitama itself. If you're not facing a lot of Saitamas, this deck basically cakewalks most of the format. Yeah, let's just put it up here. Saitama, definitely think solid tier 1 deck as well. Garu's pretty solid too. I would have to say tier 2 though, just because I think Garu is just a little bit slower to the task. Speedo Sound is a little bit faster when it doesn't have to face Saitama heavy metas. And I would say that's just how that goes. Now, why you're truly here, you know, where are all these fabulous decks going to land? First off, I think we're going to have to put Blue Kirito into Blue Sword Art Kirito's list. Crazy strong. The deck being able to perform possible 8 attacks. Is it going to happen consistently? No. But there are just great resources. The deck has a lot going for it. Now, I'm going to be straight honest with you. I think Goddess is the next big one. Especially into the rare battles, Goddess has a lot going for it, but because it plays on the 4 curve, the deck has a lot going for it without even just needing the volume 2. I think it competes extremely well into the tier 1 category, and it's going to be pretty decent into all the tier 2. So just something to think about there, and I think at the end of the day, we have a lot going for it, and with the Goddesses deck, don't sleep on it. I think it has a lot of potential. Mother Rosario, I can't comfortably say it's a tier 2 deck. I definitely say it's a tier 3. The Synthesis deck, definitely a top of tier 3 kind of situation, close to tier 2. I can't comfortably say it's going to be a tier 2 deck, but at the same time, it just needs that volume 2, and I definitely think these will all Sword Art kind of just moves to tier 2 or above. Gun Gale, solid tier 2. I think the deck does extremely well. The big 3 of, if you're going to be playing rare battles, if you're going to decide anything, you play the Gun Gale, Blue, you know, Kirito, or the Goddesses as your deck choice, and that's just going to get you where you want to be in the high rare battles. Lifa's deck, Silly Aggression plays similar to Astrid Rush, but comfortably, I can't say it's higher up than Ashford, but it is a player dependent. You are going to be playing how you want to with this deck. Hand size is where you want, but all in all, I think this is pretty solid for a tier list. There's nothing really biased I picked. A lot of this came from watching these deck plays, what their win cons are, and again, you know, there's only 2 decks that kind of fell into tier 3 for Sword Art Online. 2 decks that fell into tier 2 category, and then tier 1s definitely had to give it to those 2 because why not, you know? But they're very powerful decks, and in the current meta, One Punch has definitely changed things up in a way that, you know, Kento wasn't fast enough against One Punch Man, so it kind of knocked it down, but it plays extremely well to anything that wasn't on One Punch Man. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's what the players want to do, right? And I think this is a very solid tier list. And let me know down in the comments what you think. I'll catch you next one. Peace.